everyone. So I recently just finished The Umbrella Academy, and I decided, why don't we make a series called How Many Times Did You Die? So first off, I will be saying there are going to be a lot of spoilers. I'm going to be talking about the every episode in depth. So please just stay away if you don't want any spoilers, you want to know what happens, blah 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 blah. I am also going to add a disclaimer for Elliot Page. I am very well aware that Elliot Page is transgender. However, I have decided to start the series exactly the way it started. So for now, we will only be referring to Elliot Page as Vanya. And once we get to the third season, where Elliot Page actually transitions, we'll change Vanya to Victor. Oh, did you start it? Oh. So first off, we have the rules. For this series, I have decided that the only events I will consider for the board are any massive fight scenes or events such as the apocalypse. And the only reason I have decided to determine to use these events specifically is because they have a higher probability of fitting into one of the three categories that I have. And the other rule I have decided on is any character that doesn't have any clear evidence of being dead, such as being said or being shown, or an example could be like if they have a heart monitor and it doesn't stop and it stops beating, that could be used as evidence. However, if we do not have that, then any character that is not shown as dead or seen as dead or said as dead will be considered alive at all times and will not go into the canon category. So now that we are done with the rules, we're going to start with our three categories. Number one, we're going to start with canon. Canon is basically any death that has been confirmed, has happened, or has happened to any of our main characters. This is the only time that the deaths are actually going to be on the canon side, so anyone getting hurt or just like getting seriously damaged will only be considered for the other two categories. Okay, next off we have is probable. This category is basically an event that could have caused a death or could have led into a death, but the only reason that it didn't, like the character didn't die, was because they were either too strong, too smart, or someone like helped them out or dragged them out of the situation. And last but least we have is far-fetched. Far-fetched, this category is simply a character wouldn't have died necessarily, like they didn't even get hurt and there isn't really a reason they should have died by this fight at all because they were already strong enough to take on this person. But maybe there was a different timeline where they just like slipped and then but but basically this is just a small possibility that they could have gotten hurt in this category, and not every fight scene will fall into this category, it's just some of them. Okay, so for those of you who don't know what the Umbrella Academy is, this is just what the description of the show says. A dysfunctional family of superheroes comes together to solve the mystery of their father's death, the threat of the apocalypse, and more. So now we are going to start off with episode 1 of season 1. I'm so excited, bro! Okay. Immediately, we start on October 1st of 1989, and we learn at 12 p.m. that day, 43 women around the world gave birth at the same time. But the interesting part about this is the fact that none of these women were pregnant to begin with. Like, that day, they were not pregnant, they didn't have bellies, so for some reason they gave birth and no one could explain why. We'll talk about it later. But as soon as that happened, a billionaire named Reginald Hargreeves went searching for these kids and adopted as many of them as he could. He ended up getting 7 of them and raised them as superheroes to be what we know as the Umbrella Academy. So after that, we immediately see our main characters. We see Luther, who is number 1, the leader. We see Diego, number 2, Allison, number 3, and Klaus, number 4. And
hello, Editing Sue here, and I am aware that some people might consider the scene where we first meet Diego to be the first probable death, but I made a huge decision in not considering it for the list because I cannot fathom in any other timeline that Diego gets hurt or even by these robbers.
Immediately as we see Klaus, we see him leaving rehab. So we know he has like some type of like addiction or something. Can I say on TikTok? I hope so. But immediately when we see Klaus, we end up seeing him in an ambulance, and we have to assume that he has overdosed. So this is our first probable death, and we are going to put that on the board! Yay! We get to use the board for the first time. Hold on. We get to use the board for the first time! Okay, I'm so excited to talk about this one. So this is an interesting probable death because we're not going to talk about Klaus's power yet, but I will say it's very confusing to continue. Okay. So the reason this like probable death is so interesting and why it's on probable instead of far-fetched is because we kind of already see Klaus unconscious in the scene. Like a defibrillator is being used on him, and it took me a really long time to decide whether I could consider this a canon death or a probable death. But just as I explained before, I will not consider any death without any clear indication that it isn't death. And doing my research, he didn't meet any of the criteria of brain death or cardiopulmonary death. We have clinical death. This death is more reversible. Researchers believe that there's 5 to 10 minutes of a window period where you can still be alive and saved. So you're technically still alive in this state without the paramedic saying that Klaus is kind of like done for. We just assume that he's alive, and he ended up waking up anyway. Plus, there's the fact that we don't know how long he was unconscious for, but the paramedic was still working on him, so automatically we just have to assume that he was maybe unconscious or like clinically dead. However, that's not an absolute and cannot be determined without the paramedic determining it. And then right after Klaus's little first probable death, we see Vanya, number 7. So what we learn about Vanya is that she's kind of a bit more normal than the other siblings she has. They all kind of have this strained relationship. We can see that as they go to Reginald's house or the academy, where we realize that he has passed away. While during the scene of everyone going to Reginald's house, we kind of see indications of 2 boys being gone in the pictures. We don't really know who they are at the moment, but we kind of get a understanding of who they are a little bit later that episode. We kind of also see like Luther going through his like dad's room or something. He has this like weird suspicion that he thinks someone killed him or murdered him. I don't know why, honestly, dude. Like even Diego holding the autopsy, it was like, yeah, no, homie just regular died. He just did it. Like it's fine. He had a heart failure. There's nothing there to be seen. But the only reason Luther is like so stuck on this is because the monocle is missing. Okay. A little bit later, we see Vanya talking to Pogo, or this monkey. You know what's weird? I don't know why they had a monkey as a servant. Like, what was that about? I don't understand that. I think it's interesting that they had a monkey as a servant, but why did they have a monkey as a servant? Like, what was, like, maybe it was easy to train him, but I don't know. But we see them talking, and it is confirmed that Five has been missing for 16 years, 4 months, and 14 days. However, everyone likes to estimate it to 17 years. A little bit later, we also see Klaus going through his, like, dad's study. Just as we talked about before, he's a little bit of, like, a... No, not even a... He's a... What I meant was he's a little bit of a...
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
So he's, I believe, looking for something valuable to pawn off or get money for or sell. He ends up stealing this, like, box. We don't really know what's in the box at the moment, but it's just a box he ended up stealing. But a little bit before that, we see Allison's powers confirmed. So we're just gonna have to learn about everyone's powers very slowly. But first off, we learn about Alice's rumor. If anyone hasn't seen the show, Allison has the power to rumor people. Basically, she can say, I heard a rumor that you blank, blank, blank. And whatever she says or whatever she tells you, you will either think, believe, or do. Okay. So, now we get to our first far-fetched death. Oh! I forgot to put everyone's name on the board. I totally forgot. Yep, our first far-fetched death. And this death is far-fetched. Wait a second. Yeah, no. This death is far-fetched because it is one of the secret boys that we haven't heard about. But I'm gonna say his name now. It's number 5. And during this death, it's like a little flashback of them being in a robbery. And the only reason I said this was like a far-fetched death is because he was kind of like teleporting back and forth behind the robber, kind of like messing with him. Am I allowed to say with him? He was playing with him. He was kind of like playing a game with this dude. And the only reason I said this was like far-fetched was because deep down, I think if 5 wasn't careful, he genuinely could have gotten shot. Like, I know these kids are like superheroes and shit, but they're still humans. They can still get hurt like regular people. It's just they have a less likelihood of getting hurt. They're like bodybuilders, you know? Or like boxers. You're less likely to get hurt because you know how to fight, but you can still get hurt. So this was crazy. And he was just like jumping around. Like, he was just like jumping around. Like, he can't get hurt. But that's why I said it was far-fetched. He didn't even get hurt, so it's just a far-fetched death. Okay, after the whole, like, little robbery bit, we see Klaus attempting to contact Reginald, and he reveals to us that he can talk to ghosts. He can do a lot more than talk to ghosts, but we'll get there. Basically, he can talk to ghosts, and he's trying to just talk to Reginald and see what he's doing, and honestly, it doesn't really matter. This next part is going to be really funny, though. This is a dance party, so I'm just gonna... Okay, I'm just gonna... You can edit that somehow. I don't know how you're gonna do this. You'll figure it out. It's just a small little dance party. Okay, and after that dance party, we have a fun new character to meet. We meet number 5. I don't know if people can tell, but number 5 is my favorite character. He's my favorite character for a little bit, but we'll also see one of my other favorite characters. He comes in at season 2. I love him. He's great. Okay. So 5 comes out of a portal, and he basically explains that he was in the future, and he was there for 45 years, but for them, he was gone for 17 years, which takes off the possibility of him being dead, so we won't even count that. Okay. And next, we have our first canon death! Oh, wait, I shouldn't be so excited. I shouldn't be so excited. So immediately, we learn about number 6. They don't say he's number 6, but we just have to assume that this is number 6 since there's only so many numbers we have left. Number 6 is Ben. We see his grave. We don't really get an explanation of how he's dead or anything. It's just, he's dead, that's that, and it takes a really long time to figure out how he died. I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot to process, especially since it took like 4 seasons to figure out. But now that we have that death, we are moving on. Yo! What am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Okay, so after the canon death of Ben, we are at Reginald's funeral. And this is where our next far-fetched death comes in. So this far-fetched death has to do with number 1. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I truly believe this is a far-fetched death because it's between Luther and Diego. And what we have to realize from this scene is that Diego apparently has perfect aim. He can throw knives without even thinking about it, and he can aim perfectly wherever he wants them to go. And the only reason Luther didn't die was because Diego didn't want him to die. I have to admit that throughout the fighting scenes, we see Luther he's strong. He's a strong dude, but he's just not as fast. And personally, he could just get slit in the throat easily by Diego without Diego even having to try. It's a far-fetched death because there's no way it would have happened unless Diego was super duper pissy at Luther, but also because they're brothers and the others were there to stop them, so it wouldn't have gone that far. It's far-fetched because I don't really see a reason for it to happen. It is what it is, you know. Okay, next we have is our third far-fetched death. What? Wait, what's our third far-fetched death? Oh, our third, okay, so after the funeral, everyone's leaving, and we see number 5. He's complaining that there's no coffee, so he goes to this coffee shop. And at this coffee shop, he starts talking to this old guy about he starts rambling like an old man, but he gets some info from this dude, asking him if he knows this address or something, and then immediately right after that, we see these dudes come into the diner, and they can I say pew? I'll say pew. They have pew, and they're like, hey, 5, you need to come with us or some shit like that. And he's like, no, I won't do that. So Girly Pop starts fighting. and he starts fighting them, and it's just, he didn't really get hurt, honestly. It didn't even seem like these guys had a chance of, him at all. The only reason I put it in far-fetched is because later on we learn that, 5's teleportation is, super limited. Sometimes it will stop if he's, out of energy. And truthfully, I think if his teleportation stopped working in this event, he would have been down. I don't think he would have died, but I truly believe he would have seriously gotten hurt. Maybe I don't know, shot in the gut or something, in another episode. But after that, we see Diego being so emo, near a lake. And it turns out that he's the one who took Reginald's monocle. We don't know why he took Reginald's monocle, and he just throws it in the lake. But it kind of is a signal that maybe Diego did something to Reginald. You know what I mean? Also, we kind of see Klaus next to a ghost. So that's the end of episode 1. We did it! Yay!